Welcome back, friends. In this video, we're going to learn how to use the over clause. And this is useful because you can, for example, again, summarize records and then make new columns and then use those columns. Take a look at a more concrete example here. First, let's imagine a simple assignment. Show the percent each individual order quantity. I'm talking about the same table as in the last video now. So show the percent each individual order quantity is of the total order quantity broken down by order ID. So it's like saying grab a collection of records, take each individual order ID, in other words, that's a block of records, grab each individual order quantity and divide by the total of the order quantities for that block of records. And then take the next individual quantity and divide by the total for the quantities for that block of records. You see? That's what this is doing. So let's take a look at an example here. I'm going to type use AdventureWorks as before, go. And first, let's remember this. I'm going to say select star from sales order detail. Let's give this a run here one time. So remember we had this first sales order right here, like that. So what we are going to do is for this sales order, we'll take the order quantity 1 and we'll divide by the sum of all of the order quantities. Then we'll take sales order where it says 3, and again, we'll divide that by the sum of all the order quantities. We want to see what percent each product ID, in other words, that's next to it. Take a look. So right here, in other words, we want to see what percent product ID of 776 is of all the quantities ordered on 43659 on that sales order ID. We want to see, for example, what percent product ID 709 is of all of the items ordered on sales order ID 43659. That's the goal here. So notice this looks like a window. You see it's a blue area here. So we're going to use the over clause, and sometimes you might describe it as the windowing quantity, the windows. You see that looks like a little window, and you're focusing on a single block of records, so we call that a windowing function essentially. Let's take a look at what I mean here. So I'm beginning with this. You've understood, I hope, to some extent what it is that we are going to do and why we are going to do it. And now let's actually do it. So the first easy thing will be to show the sales order ID. So I will say that here. I will say sales order ID. And then after that, I will type order quantity. And let's take a look. I'm going to take this and just run this small amount of code first. Hit execute. All right. So I look at my data here. Let me pull this up a little more. And I see I've got this block of records right here. And I should now be able to add one more column as an example, where I say that that one is some fraction of all of these. So that one, the order quantity 1, that's one value, for example. I want to tell what fraction is it of the sum of the values in the order quantity column. That's the objective here, okay? Only within that particular sales order. Then I would have to repeat that for the next block of records with a different sales order. So we call this windowing. You see, it's a little window, the blue area. And then, for example, what I mean to more clearly is you would take perhaps the next set of orders that have the same ID, maybe just the 2 of these. That's okay. It's still a little window. You see that? And then you would take the next one. Point is that you're windowing. Okay, you're making little windows and you're analyzing each block of records individually. So you take this one, right, and then you would analyze that block individually apart from the other ones. Windowing. Good. So let's move on here. So this is easy at this stage. Select 2 fields. At the next stage, I'm going to start windowing, so to speak. So by windowing, I mean this. I'm going to put a comma over here after order quantity, and I will say sum, and then you put an expression. So I'm going to say order quantity, like that. And first, we're building our understanding incrementally. Let's just give this a run. And as you can see, it doesn't work because you get the usual, it's either an aggregate function or the group by clause. There's a problem, obviously. This time, instead of grouping by, we're going to use over. So I'm going to say over, and then you're going to use this keyword here, partition. So you're breaking into individual sets of records you can analyze individually, partitioning by order ID. So by and then order ID. So you've got this aggregating function sum, and you're going to apply that, and you're partitioning by order ID. So use this over clause right here. Okay, and then partition by the name of the field you want to partition the data by. And I have to change order ID, of course, to sales order ID, like that. Hit execute. And that looks like this. So what have we done at this stage? Let's go through this carefully. Sometimes getting these things to stick can be tricky on the screen. I want to take one that we haven't done before. See, if you go too fast, it passes through all the records too fast. You can't see everything. So imagine this block of records right here. Okay, this is a block of records. It's a window. You're windowing. You're separating into individual blocks. I've got 43661. And when I look at this, order quantity is 1. And that value of 38, where is that coming from? Well, that comes from taking the order quantity for this particular order ID of 43661. You're taking the order quantity and you're adding it up. That's it. That's where this 38 is coming from. You would take the 1 and 2. That's give you 3 and 4, 7 and 4, 11. And then just add it up on your calculator if you have to convince yourself, okay? Assuming I've got all the values shown here. Sometimes getting everything to show can be a bit tricky because this can be very sensitive to scrolling. Okay, that's what I mean. You see, so here, this block right here. I think that's all of them. There you go. So remember, sales order ID forms a little window. We're looking only there. Take the order quantities, add them up from top to bottom, and you place that value next to each individual order quantity. Once you have it like that, think about it. Now, you can continue operating mathematically. You can take the 1 and you can divide by the 38 and you can see what fraction that is of everything. You can take the next one, divide by 38 and see what fraction that is. You can take the 4, divide by the 38 and see what fraction that is of everything. That's the thinking that I'm stressing here, okay? Clearly, this doesn't have the best column name. I need to pull this down. So first of all, aliasing will play a big role here. So I'm going to say here as total QTY, total quantity. That makes sense. All right, give this another go. Make sure it takes. Yes, it does. All right, good. Now, that's that part of it. Next, what we want to do is take each individual order quantity and divide by the total order quantity for that one order ID. And to do that, I will type the following. I'm going to say first of all this. I'm going to take the order quantity, and I'll just try something basic. So for example, just divide by sum of the order quantity. And let's see what this will give anything. Put a comma after total QTY on the previous line. You got to separate the fields with commas. And let's see what this will give us what we need. So we take this and we give it a go. We experiment. All right, does this give us what we need? All right, and that is not working. It's giving an error message, and it says, again, not contained in either an aggregate function or the group by clause. Remember, in this video, we're avoiding group by. We want to use over and partition by instead. So then we say, all right, well, what do I do next? I scratch my head a little, and I say, I'm going to try over. And because I'm not using group by in this context, I'm going to say over and then partition by sales order ID. I'm going to give that a shot, see what comes out of it. I want to partition this calculation, order quantity divided by the sum of the order quantity. And I want to partition that calculation by the sales order ID. So let me take this and execute. And I look at my output and I say, okay, I'm getting zeros. That's not helping me much because 1 divided by 26, which is what I'm doing for each record, that's not helping me. That's not 0. If I check 1 divided by 26 on my calculator, it should be some kind of decimal. And now you'll scratch your head for a long time and you think, how do I fix this? Well, the problem lies in this. Take a look. Go over to the tables on AdventureWorks, expand the tables node, and find this table called sales order detail, okay? Take a look. So sales order detail, so you got to go to the sales schema. Okay, PRS, and then sales order detail, expand that node, go to the columns, and remember when you've got this order quantity right here, you see it's even it says a small integer. The point is that it's an integer. It's a number like 5, 10, 15. So when you try to do this kind of division, it produces an output that doesn't store any decimals, doesn't store any values after the decimal point because of the data type of order quantity as an example. You see? It's a small integer. The point is it's a whole number. It's not designed in this kind of calculation to produce a value that has numbers after the decimal point, but it should, right? Because 1 divided by 26 should be a decimal number, a number with some numbers after the decimal point. So we fix that as follows. That's just the motivation. So now comes the fix. And the fix is this one. I'm going to say the following here. I can say, take order quantity. I'm going to say cast order quantity as float. And that line is needed so that we can switch the data type. And the data type switch is needed so that when we look at the column that represents the percents, we get a decimal value or a number with places after the decimal point instead of a 0 like that. It doesn't make any sense for us. Okay? All right, I'm going to split this over multiple lines here. So this cast is needed to convert from one data type to another so we can see decimal numbers in the column. So give it a go. And again, this is a learned skill, right? You've got to see it, practice it, think about it. And now take a look at this column. Now we've got some numbers built up nicely in decimal form. That's good. Of course, we should alias this in some sensible way. So you can type, for example, here as percent of whole. Do it that way first. Execute, and now you get percent of whole. Good. So if you punch this into your calculator, you should try it. Take 3 divided by 26, you should get something like that. Take as an example 2 divided by 26, you should get that value. Take, for example, 4 divided by 26, and you should get that value. If you think about Excel, right, Excel has features that allow you to do the same thing if you think about it. Okay, depending on how much you know about Excel, obviously. Okay. And last bit is, of course, to format this. Right now, as you can see, it's formatted in this unattractive way. Too many decimal places. It looks messy. In a professional output, this would not be acceptable. So we need to fix that. And to fix that is to format it. So the next stage, I'm going to format. I'm going to type format like that. And all of this that I've built up so carefully and slowly, all of that has to be formatted. The conversion from a small integer or basically a whole number data type to a float data type, the division by the sum of the order quantities, the over partition by sales order ID, all of that has to be formatted. And you do that by typing now a comma. Look very carefully where the comma is placed. And then between single quotes, you put P for percent. Remember to connect to previous videos, we did C for currency. Now we're doing P for percent. Like that. So perhaps at this point, you should pause the video and stare at this very carefully for a little bit. And notice that I've split the over onto the next line, and that's okay. It's still considered to be part of this. That I've highlighted is considered one unit from left to right. All right, and now let's take a look at the result. And now we have a nice professional output. Take a look, we've got percent symbols everywhere, as we should. So remember, let's take a look at the first order here. This entire block let's see. This is a window of information, as you can see. It's windowing. You take the order quantity, divide by 26, and you convert that value by multiplying by 100 and adding the percent symbol if you like. That's how you do it on a calculator, right? Or by hand. Here it's taken care of automatically, obviously. Then you take 3, divide by 26, and you show that as a percent. And you repeat that for this entire block of calculations right there that I've highlighted. That's one window. At the next stage, I'm going to scroll down as gently as I can. Sometimes it's tricky. Take a look at these two. These would constitute the next window of information, so to speak. You've got the same order ID. You've got the order quantity 1 and 1. The total quantity, therefore, is 2. Remember, 1 plus 1 gives 2. 1 divided by 2 is 50%. 1 divided by 2 is 50%. So it confirms here that what I've done is correct. It's working in this small case, and it's very easy to check with the small case. Okay? And some of the blocks of information are big, some are relatively small. These, for example, take a look here. You take 1 divided by 14, get that. Take 4 divided by 14, get that. And so on. Here we can even add them up, right? 1 and 4. I want to do this at least for one more window because I want you to really understand. So 1 and 4 will give you 5. 5 and 1 is 6. 6 and 1 is 7. 7 and 2 is 9. 9 and 3 is 12. 13, 14. You see that? And the 14 is then placed next to each individual entry. Then you do the calculations as 1 divided by 14 is that percent, 4 divided by 14 is that percent. At the end, 1 divided by 14 is again that percent. I spent a lot of time on this, but I think this example is somewhat advanced and definitely interesting. Thank you very much, friends, and I'll see you in the next one.